I noticed the with this emulation, I feel like the time, like it currently says 9:44 on the dashboard. I don't even know if that's actually shows up on the bus cam there. It might be blocked by the desert bus thing.
I think you're right.
But anyway, all the stats on the dashboard of the bus, even in the dark here, are so crisp.
Right? Yeah. Like even with how dark everything is, it's like everything looks really, really sharp. In fact, I'm pretty sure that monitor we're playing on is a 4K monitor.
It is.
Yes. This is the only 4K monitor in the entire setup.
And I mean, it shows, like, I guess in some ways, like how this has changed, how our experience of it has changed over time. Like, I feel like, because we used to play, just on a random CRT monitor or whatever, and then we got sort of different monitors.
Yeah.
And then we got the XI and different things. But I feel like, for one thing, we initially didn't know that there were sides of the road at night.
Yeah.
We didn't think they were there. And I'm pretty sure that, like, we didn't think that you could, like, that there just a bunch of the stuff on the dashboard we thought you just weren't supposed to be able to see.
Right. Which it is funny because, like, obviously in the implementation of all of that, it feels like the thing where it's like you're on the left side of the road, right? You expect that your headlights would spill onto the shoulder of the road.
It's true.
And you should be seeing the shoulder.
We should be seeing the shoulder of the road when we're not, which is interesting.
That the layers in which stuff has been drawn on, it's like that's not an alpha channel that's being illuminated.
It's actually just gray circles.
Yeah, and which is really interesting because it means that still, though, the yellow dotted line has to flow across them, but the bug splat has to be on top of all of that. So there's clearly some sort of layering that's going on here to
and like
make this look this way.
I wonder if it actually is just a palette swap. Like
yeah.
Like, is the bug splat and the like, or is like the lines down the middle of the road?
Because like no matter what.
But the lines down the middle of the road, they're smaller, and like there's more square when you're at nighttime.
Right.
Because you're just like seeing the reflector, not the actual line. And so I wonder if when it's daytime, the line is actually made up of two segments, and then they just black one out.
I know that there have been a few people. There were a few people who have been analyzing this and kind of breaking it into pieces to try to figure it out. I know at like one point, Dark Morford was taking a look at it, so Sean has looked into this a bit too. And Dark Morford's also around this year, so maybe we'll hear something about that. I'm not saying get out here on stage, Dark Morford, unless you feel comfortable doing that. But the I know that other people have also talked about it in the past. Where they've been like, yeah, the way it was implemented, it came out like this. And I think even somebody did talk to whoever did the original implementation. And like, it was like we were putting this together in this way. It's put together pretty fast, so it's.
I mean,
yeah. Of course it would.
To be fair to them, yeah. I would. I also would not spend a whole ton of time.
No, absolutely not.
One of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if this ever actually really came across on the stream, but ever since we started playing it on an LED or on like a flat screen monitor, where instead of a CRT, we saw there was a green border around the video.
Yes.
In the daytime, and then when it went to nighttime, it turned to like a dark color, and then in dusk, like, so it was part of the palette. It was like part of the palette. It was like whatever, like
it was matching basically greens that are already on the.
It was like palette 0 or whatever.
Yeah.
Does this border around the entire thing? But it's like an overscan thing, and with the Mr. Pi, it doesn't do that. And I was like, hey, what's up with that? Like, I asked Matt, who set this up. I was like, hey, what's up with that? Is that because the emulation is different and stuff? And his theory was that it's actually to do with like the actual output of like a Sega Saturn.
Or
Would
Sega
have-
CD.
has- or Sega CD
Yeah.
would have that, or like any game that you outputted on a Sega CD would have that border around it. That's just a side effect of the sort of composite output
Right.
system.
And so therefore it's like the Mister is saying, I already know what to expect in your emulation, that you would naturally be playing this on a monitor that doesn't have overscan anymore. So therefore, I am going to, by default, we're not going to show any of the overscan portion, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway. Look. You spend so much time playing this game, the
The
teeny little nuances. Like, obviously you can't speedrun
Right.
Desert Bus, or at least not really.
Not
I mean,
this version anyway, yeah.
there's stuff about like what speed you go and different whether you stop at bus stops and all stuff. But in some ways there is that same mentality, like people who speed run, Mario or some of the games that have been like speed run completely to death. They have this thing of like, oh, in this area there's this pixels in a different spot than it should be, which means that you could do this like weird move and then do all this thing.
Could you imagine if this was clock limited or frame limited? So if you actually, because I'm assuming that the Sega Genesis Sega CD, that whole setup is probably drawing at 60 frames a second anyway, and is kicking 60 frames a second out to whatever you're looking at. Because I'm pretty sure like the SNES was also 60 frames a second, and everything comes out in 30 frames a second because that's what you're drawing to.
It would be isn't it 30? It's 299.
Yeah, 2996. Yeah.
2996.
But it's like everything's being rendered, like actually being processed and programmed. Because I remember watching Displaced Gamers, I think it is, and he talks about how on the NES things get processed at 60 frames a second, and I was like, no, it's the NES. It can't do that. And it's like, no, that's literally how they would do it. Is it's all done in 60 frames a second, but naturally, it means that when it gets spit out to you, you're only seeing it 2996. You're seeing it at NTSC, right? Or 25 if you're wherever. But it was like, wow, really? Like, okay, didn't realize that.
Hi, short list is good.
Nice. We will have a look at that in a second. But it would be funny if the game was actually like, if it was frame limited or clock limited or something weird like that. If you played it on an overclocked version of a Genesis, that it'd be like, oh yeah, I can play 4 times faster or something ridiculous like that.
I mean, of course, with emulators, you can like increase your clock speed.
Yeah.
And do stuff.
But if increasing the clock speed makes the game play faster, or if increasing the clock speed just means it's like, oh, it can process everything faster, but the game still plays at the same pace.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I mean, changing the frame rate was a big problem for like Dark Souls.
Yes.
So, who knows whether they have more sophisticated programming in this? But
I'm gonna go walk off of camera to go have a boo, unless Paul, you would like to do that first.
well, you can go ahead.
I'll go have a look first. All right. You got the con, obviously.
I,
You're old in this bus.
Back when I did the what do you call it, the Paul Quest series, where I was playing through all the Space Quest games, I ran into a thing on a couple of games where it was that problem where the emulation was too good or too fast, and so like you're running it in DOSBox or whatever, and mostly it would be fine, and then every once in a while something just like wouldn't play properly, like you would hit a button and something would just explode immediately, whereas it was supposed to wait a certain amount of time before it exploded. So it was like most things were fine, but then every once in a while something was tied to your clock speed, and so then I'd have to like go in and change the clock speed to like, no, I am actually running on a 100 megahertz or 66 megahertz DOS 286 or whatever, 386.
I had that problem whenever I tried to replay the old Lords of the Realm 2 game. Because the entire game was clocked off the processor speed, including combat. So you'd enter combat, and if you weren't to pause, the fight would be over instantaneously as the because it's actively controlled, as the enemy just ran at you and started combat before you could react to anything.
Just dead. Oh, 26 was the 20, right? I guess it was 486 went up to 66. I know it then had the turbo that dropped it back down, but
I originally played that game on a 75 megahertz computer. So playing on a 3 gigahertz was not right.
no. But you know what? We had 75 megahertz and we were happy.
They were better days, simpler days. Days when you didn't have to install Windows for like 10 gigs or whatever it is now.
I think as Kamal Nanjiani had a bit talking about, different games, and I think he was talking about playing Heavy Rain, and this scene where it's just like, building up the relationship. You're building the relationship with your kid and trying to. It's this like whole huge emotional thing. You say, back in the day, it was if you wanted to tell a story like that in a video game, it would be like, okay, well, I guess this dot would be you, and then this other dot is the kid. And then I guess we'll have to put most of it in the manual to like give you the backstory.
Man, manual art was amazing.
See, modern video games, to me, like the modern age of video games is when the stuff in the game actually started to get up to the level of what they drew on the cover of the box.
Yes, agreed. When it started to feel like you were playing a cartoon, that's when I knew it was like, okay, we're in a golden age of video gaming.